away automatically like it should, and it is now running. Okay, perfect. So now I've got my stream going on YouTube. I've got my stream going on this. As I was just showing, we've got some fun with the lasers cutting. Hi, Ashley. Good to see you and your family here again. Glad you're joining us. Again, my name is Jim. I am your host, and you are watching Kitbashing. All right, welcome back. So today's episode of Kitbashing should be really fun because we are going to complete our Newton's Cradle project that we started yesterday. So if you look down at our camera for our desk, you can see we've got the supplies laid out. For those of you who are still getting in touch with this, if you go to our website, and our website address is madenewomaha.com/kitbashing, you'll actually be able to see yesterday's episode listed on that website now, so you can go back and look up the parts and you can build along with us. If you are on our Facebook page or if you're on our YouTube page, you'll also be able to go and watch those videos in our video selections on both of those sites. So for those of you who are here joining us for the second half of this episode, I want to show you exactly what we're going to need to get this done today. So to complete this project, we're going to need yesterday's build. That's number one. We can't do this without yesterday's project. We're also going to need some of this yellow mason string. That's the stuff that it should have come in your kit if you got your kit. And if for whatever reason, if you're assembling this kit at home and it's not yellow, the color doesn't really matter. You're also going to need your marbles. You're going to need 6 marbles if you want. I put mine in the cup just so that they're organized. You're going to need a pair of scissors, and that pair of scissors is going to come in super handy because we need to cut our string down. We're also going to have this gaff tape roll on hand just because that's going to help us just a little bit when we are trying to secure things down and hold stuff from moving. We've used quite a bit of gaff tape on this project. There's a little bit more that we need to do, but we're going to dive right in. And if anybody has questions, again, remember, if you're watching this on Wednesday, April 1st at 1 o'clock hour, that means you're watching live, and if you put a comment in the video, we'll see it and we'll be able to respond. If you're not watching at that time, then you will be able to put a comment in here and we'll try to respond anyway after the fact, or maybe we'll make a point about it in the show. If you haven't noticed, yesterday we had some great commentary. My son Luke was here. Unfortunately today, if you look at the desk cam, he is not here today. He is hanging out with Nana and Grandpa, which is totally cool. I'm very excited because Nana and Grandpa are in town. They travel across the country in their big travel trailer, and so it's really kind of cool. But they are in town visiting. They were actually helping us with some basement remodeling. We're turning that into Luke's room, actually. And so it's been very exciting, and we're glad that they're here. Thanks for coming, Nana and Grandpa. Let's get right on to our project. So today, we are going to be finishing our Newton's Cradle. And if you remember from yesterday, where we left, the cradle itself was a little wibbly-wobbly. And what I mean by that is if you look at it, it kind of goes back and forth. And Luke had asked about how we would shore this up. And so I told him we would do that today. And there's a couple things that we can do. The first thing to check is to make sure that these screws are super tight. Now before I get any farther, I'm going to move this out so you can see it a little bit more clearly. You want to make sure that both of these are about as level as they'll get, okay? So, yeah, that looks about right. So, once they're level, I'm going to tighten these bolts as tight as I can get them, and that will help us a little bit. Okay? And the more wobble you have, the less energy you're going to transfer in the Newton's Cradle project. And so we really want to make sure that we get this as tight as we possibly can. Now, I think that's pretty good. And I'm going to actually take a couple of these twist ties and we're going to tighten them up just a little more. And what I'm doing there, if you look overhead, all I'm doing to tighten these up is I'm taking the slack in the middle, and I made kind of a little bubble here that I'm twisting around. That will actually allow us to pull this pretty tight. It won't be perfect, but it's going to be pretty close. Luke did a really good job with that yesterday, so we should be able to make this work just the way that it is. And I'm going to wrap that one up. Okay, so this is pretty good. Now I'm going to make sure that we do the same thing up here. Yep, you got that knotted up really good, so we're just going to make sure we get it tight. And the tighter that your assembly is, again, the better this will work. The thing with Newton's Cradle is actually an example of passing energy from one source to another. This kinetic motion of the balls. And for those of you who have not seen a Newton's Cradle, or maybe you're wondering what I'm talking about, they're those fun things that have like the 4 balls that you drop one on one side, beep, 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 like that. That's what a Newton's Cradle is. And we're building one out of our kit, and it should be pretty cool once we get done. Now, just those couple little things that I did have already tightened this up a bit. It still wobbles left and right a little bit, but we're getting there. So here are a couple things that we can do to make this a little bit sturdier so that we're not seeing as much wobble. The first thing you can do is, if you still have any of your twist ties handy. Now, these are optional today. You don't have to do this, but if you still have a few of these handy, one thing that you can do is you can run these through over here, and we'll twist it, and then we're going to pull one way. If you've ever worked on, for example, like building a bridge for a science project, you'll know the most stable shape is a triangle. Well, this is a big rectangle. It's not a triangle. And so if we want to stabilize this, one way we can do that is to cross over with our pipe cleaners and pull that pretty tight. We want to make it as tight as we can, and that will give us a little bit more stability. Now, if you don't have any pipe cleaners left, if you use them for the other projects that we've done and you haven't recycled, that's okay. I'm going to roll back here and grab a couple more, though, because I want to show you guys this step. Now, there we go. If you have, there we go. If you have the pipe cleaners left, that will really help out a lot. But you don't need to do this. This is totally optional. That's why I didn't even put this in the list of requirements. But now what we've done is we've gone from having one great big kind of haphazard rectangle into this section of 4 triangles, which, if I was really going for stability, I'd have twisted these together at the intersection. I don't need to. Again, this is optional. But now all of a sudden, the left to right strength of this has become so much stronger. And I don't have in my kit, I think I've used it because I build all of these projects beforehand. So I don't always have all of the pieces, because I might have a few things set aside for the next project. So I don't have enough pipe cleaners right now to do all of these. So I'm just going to do one more cross brace over here, and then we're going to call it good. Now, if you don't have these, like I said, you can use anything else. You can use tape if you want to. That'll do the trick just nicely. To use the tape, it's actually really easy. So we're just going to take our tape, back this up a little so you can see it. And if I want to make a cross brace with the tape, once I unpeel my tape here, and that's the part that probably takes the longest of anything, there we go. I'm going to do 2 things. One is I'm going to measure how much I need. Okay, I need about that much. And I'm going to tear it the long way. And if you remember what I said the last time, you can tear this with your hands. You just hold one hand with your finger, holding it like that, across the side, and then you pull it, just like so. All right, cool. And then to tear this down the middle, that's the next thing we want to do. I want to make sure the tape doesn't roll up on itself too much, because this will stick to itself really well. But same thing, I'm going to just tear it down the middle, and then this piece here, I'm just going to lay it there for a second. You could stick it to the side of something if you wanted to. But I'm going to take this now, and I'm going to put this, and just as soon as I tell you be careful. It sticks to itself. What did I go and do? I got it stuck to itself. All right, so now we have our cross pieces, and again, you can make this with tape. That is totally acceptable. Now, we have one other thing that we have to do, though. We have to get, there we go. So left-right stability is really, really good. We still have a little back and forth stability issue this way. I mean, you can see that kind of fell down. So a lot of the first part of today is about getting this stabilized, because if you don't have a good stable connection, then this won't work very well. But to get this the way that we want it, we're going to do kind of the same thing up here on the top. But instead of going all the way across, we're going to get our, here we go, move that. Now if you see, this is way crooked. This is totally not even functional. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get this straight, but first I'm going to tear off about a third of the tape that I've taken off. And then I'm going to get this straight right where I want it. And if I need to straighten the legs out a little bit, I can do that as well. Okay, cool. Now when I get it right where I want it, the next step is to wrap it around the corners like so. Now I'll show you on the other camera what I'm doing here in just a second. But I just want to make sure, and then I'm going to take another piece of that tape, and it's still a little off, but that's okay. I'm going to put this one over here on this corner. Right. And what we're doing is we're basically securing these legs to the base so that it will be a little bit stronger. And it's not perfect, but we don't need perfect here. We just want to get this transferred over. And if you need more tape at this point, then you can grab some. I actually have little pieces of tape that I've saved from other projects. This gaff tape is usually pretty reusable. So if you want to save it, you absolutely can and reuse it on another project. Sometimes it's not quite as sticky, but it's pretty good. So now if you look at this, I've put tape on all four corners, and let me show you what that looks like from this angle. How I've gone just across at this 45 degrees, so that way there's some taped on one side to this piece, and there's some taped on this side to this piece. And if you do that, it does increase the stability. There's still a little bit of movement, but it's not like before where this thing was all super floppy. So now that I've got that, this is where things kind of get tricky. This is where we're going to start actually putting the cradle itself together. And I had one of these come off, so I'm going to grab another piece of tape down here, and we're just going to secure that. This is the one that's going to give me trouble because it wants to be crooked. And if it wants to be crooked, there's a couple reasons for that. One of the reasons is probably because you've got something over here. One of our reinforcers is tighter than it should be, or tighter than the others. And so it's going to keep putting pressure on that and trying to pull that. Not the end of the world. Not the end of the world. Now, here's the part that's really sort of tricky. I'm going to line this up again so you can see on the desk camera. All right, we see how long this is. We're going to need to cut a bunch of pieces of our yellow twine, and we're going to need them to be about almost the length of your build. So from the outside point here to the outside point here. And we're going to make 6 of those today. Now, the easy way to do that, now I've already got 6 because I built this project to make sure that it actually would work the first time. But you are going to have a long piece that you're going to have to cut down. So let me take my pieces and get those out of the way. And if you need to cut down a piece, again, it's really, really easy because the length we need is almost the same length as our project. So if you just lay one end down here and the other end down here, so now I've got it at the length of the project, take your scissors, and then we cut. And my scissors are getting dull because I cut the wrong things with them. And then we'll just continue doing that until you've got 6 of those. So while you're cutting those, I'm going to show you some of the next step. We have our marbles right here. Don't lose them. That's like my continuous joke. Every single time that we have marbles on this show, I'm going to tell you not to lose them. It's what I do. Dad jokes, you know. All right, so now I've got the marbles, which I don't want to lose, and I'm going to leave those here. But we need to start making some marble supports to attach our rope to our marbles. So how do we do that? Okay, well, it's actually pretty easy. We're going to take our tape again, and remember again how we can tear this. What you want is you want a very small amount of tape, and what I mean by very small is that it shouldn't even be as wide as your marbles. It should be probably about half of that. And if you need to cut this with scissors, you can if it helps you make it exact. For me, I can just hold this right here, and then I'm going to pinch it with 2 fingers and tear it off. Awesome. Okay, and then if it gets stuck to itself, as long as it didn't get stuck very hard, you might still be able to recover it. I don't know if I can this time. We'll see. Okay, that one doesn't want to be recovered. This is the fun of doing this live, is that you get to see the stuff that is tough. And if it's tough for me, I expect that it would be tough for other people watching. Now, that time, I used almost my entire thumb to stick to the piece of tape, which I think really helped. That's something you might be able to do in your build. Now, the next step is I'm going to take this piece of tape. So now I have this little guy right here, and I need to take just a little bit off of him. And I'm going to do that by going about 1/3 of the way and tearing it like that. So now I've got this little itty bitty square, and I got this bigger piece. The next step is the really important part. So I've got my bigger piece, and I got my little square. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick the little square very carefully so I don't mess up. Just like that. So that we have the blue square in the middle, and there's a little bit of sticky on either side. And the reason that you want a little bit of that sticky stuff on either side is because this is actually going to become the loop for your marbles. If you take your marble and you take one sticky side, and then now I've got this little guy that sticks over the edge. So here's what we're going to do with that, is we take the little guy that's sticking over the edge, and we curl this just a little, and then we stick that down. My phone's ringing because I didn't turn the ringer off. I don't know who that is even. Fascinating. There we go. Now the ringer's off, and hopefully it won't bother me. But if you see what I did, I used the 2 sticky sides, and then the part that is sticking up is that part in the middle that has the bit of blue on it. And that's the way that you want this. This is perfect. There we go. Make sure I push the pieces down. And then just make sure you push that sticky adhesive part onto your marble, because it might try to fight you. It might not want to stick down, but this is how we actually get the marbles to hang on the string. So this part needs to go pretty well. And here we go. There we are. Okay. So see, we've got that little gap right there. It doesn't need to be huge. It just needs to be big enough for a string to go through. All right, cool. So we've got hopefully 6 strings cut. And if you've got your 6 strings cut, then the next step is going to be to take your 6 marbles, and I'm going to do this at the same time as you, and we're going to keep making these little loops. And again, these are pretty easy to make. We're just going to take our tape, we're going to tear off a little strip, probably about, I don't know, 1/2 to 2/3 the width of the marbles themselves. And then we're going to tear off that little piece. So we got our big piece and our little piece. And then we put this part here. And the only reason, like, you really could probably do this without this little blue backer piece. The reason I'm using that on there is just so that the rope, the string has something that it can go through. And if you don't do that, it's probably fine, and it might actually even work just as well. But you'll see later on that what we need to do is we need to adjust those strings, and this will make adjusting them just a little bit easier. So here's that. So now I've got 2, and if anybody is just now joining us here, I'm going to turn this camera. Again, usually we have Lucas with us, but today he is with Nana and Grandpa, and so he is not able to be here. Hopefully he'll be on tomorrow's show. It's been going fairly well for us with the schooling thing. I mean, we are getting to the point where we're figuring out how this all works, and we have our schedule set up, and I think that's probably the hardest part of this adjustment, is getting used to the way things are now, getting used to the fact that, hey, the kids don't wake up and just walk to school like they usually do. School still takes a few hours of their day, but it's just a totally different process, and that's okay. You know, one thing I've said on this show more than once is that we will find ourselves in tough times, whether it's because of this virus or whether it's some entirely different situation. We're going to find ourselves in tough times, and the big secret is how you handle it. And you can either say, okay, well, this is tough, but I'm tough too, and I can make it. Or you can fall apart and let the fear and the anxiety get to you. And it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be anxious. I'm afraid, and I'm anxious at times. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of being a person. But if we let that fear and we let that anxiety control our lives, then we're going to find that it's a lot more difficult than if we just say, okay, we're in a difficult situation, and I am a little worried, but I think I can make it through. It's okay to say I think I can make it through when times are tough. We have, there we go. So now I've got 5 of these on here, and that's almost enough. We're going to do one more, and then we'll be ready. So for those of you who are watching on Facebook, my friend John Mack is here again. He is working from home, and the fun thing is that we can actually bring together multiple communities, because I've got my Facebook community, I've got Ashley's whole family watching us, we've got John Mack on the other side on YouTube watching, and here we are kind of in the middle doing our little thing. All right, so now we made 6 of these, and we've got enough room for the strings to pass through, which is exactly what our next step is. The way to do this is to take your string, and if this end is way too frayed, this is not CDC approved, but there is a strategy to deal with this. CDC, don't watch this video. It's just, yeah. And so if you need to do that, you can. Hopefully, you know, Dr. Fauci and all these other people aren't watching this video, because if they are, I'm going to get an email. But, you know, I don't think it's a problem as long as you're only licking your own string and not the string that you give to somebody else. It's probably CDC okay. And so then we're going to take the strings and we're going to string up all of these. And what we want to do is you want to set it up so that they're about halfway through the string. That's going to be about the right place to start with. Again, if you remember, we used that little piece underneath, so that's going to give us a little bit of freedom to move these back and forth even once we get them set up in the cradle. So back, forth, wherever. One word of warning is that once you get the cradle assembly complete, these do have a little bit of ability to move, and so that might be something that causes an issue for you later on. So keep that in mind, because you might have to adjust this. But again, we're not building a permanent Newton's cradle that you'll keep on your shelf forever. We're building something that's going to be really fun for a couple days, and then we're going to make something new. And that's also very much like life. We get a limited number of things given to us every day, and with those things, we can choose what we make of them. And we can make something awesome, or we can make something terrible. But the next day, we're going to have the same resources available to us, and oftentimes those resources are just the hours that we have available. I am pulling this one through now. I had to readjust it, and so you might find yourself needing to readjust these, but if you're seeing now, you can start to see what we're building with these. And if you've got to readjust things or tweak things, that's totally fine. I've got, there we go, perfect. All right, so now I've got all 6 set up. This next part is a little tricky, and I think we can all get it done together, and we won't have any issues, but it is a little bit tricky. Oh, I moved the desk cam. That's like, this would be a great angle if it works. Okay, so here is the actual cradle, and this is our pile. You can't see them right now, but this is our pile of strings, and we need to put one onto the other. Easiest way to do this, we're going to take a piece of tape. This is a very tape heavy project if you haven't noticed. And I'm going to measure that tape to be, see these holes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Isn't that convenient? There's actually a 7th hole hiding here. It's almost like when we designed these pieces, we thought about this project in advance. So here's what we're going to do. And I'm going to bring this a little bit closer to me so I can work with it. All that we need to do is bring up each of these. And this part doesn't have to be perfect. But what I want is to bring the yellow string through each and every hole from the outside. And all right, I got 3 on. And then I'm going to just take this piece of tape and I'm going to cover up those first 3 holes. So we're holding those 3 where we want them. And then we're going to keep going. Number 4. This is why I waited to get 3 on, because this can get a little annoying if you use a full length piece of tape. Now you can, when I built this the first time, I used a bunch of smaller pieces of tape up here when I was putting this together, and that was a little bit easier, but I kind of like just one piece of tape for my own personal preference. And so you do this the way that you do this. I'm really seriously going to be interested in seeing builds. So anybody who builds this at home, please send me a video, show me how it turned out, and even like if it doesn't work for you for whatever reason, and don't just totally reset and try again right away. Send me a picture of the one that doesn't work, because here's the thing, is that failure is part of science. If you don't fail, you're not really trying. So even if it doesn't work right, that's okay. Mine might not work right the first time either, and we'll have to adjust it, and that's okay. So let's go back to our desk cam. So you can see now I've rotated this around. Now this is where it gets kind of tricky. I said that we're getting into the tricky part, and that's true. Now for this side, I am going to take smaller strips of tape, and so I took a piece that's, you know, size of the end of my thumb. If you look over here, we have our strings coming through that we've taped in place. Now we'll want to tape those eventually, but I'm going to take this, there's not really a middle one because there's 6, but I'm going to pick one that's kind of in the middle, and it's the first, second, third one over. So I'm going to come over here. Now remember, this hole is used on mine on the other side, so this hole isn't being used. But we're going to go 1, 2, 3 holes, and I'm going to lead it through and pull the string up so there's just a little bit of slack here. And I am going to tape that down just like so. And if you used a small enough piece of tape, it will work so that your hole is not, or your tape is not blocking all the other holes. Now, I'll turn this so you can see. That's nowhere near centered. But that's okay, because we made these adjustable. So we're just going to adjust it. And you'll move it back and forth a little bit till you get it exactly where you want it. But as soon as you get it, there we go, it's sort of balanced. And I actually think that's pretty close to balanced. It'll hang close to the middle. And if your build isn't perfect, it won't hang totally in the middle. But so there we go. Okay, first piece. Now, a Newton's cradle with one ball is really boring, you know. Ooh, ah. That doesn't really do much, right? Sorry if you heard some weird noises. I was actually just moving Luke's mic so it's closer to me. It occurred to me that I'm trying a new microphone setup, and it might not be the best setup with me leaning over the other way. All right, we've got one done. Now we're going to take one of his neighbors. So we're going to take this guy right here, the one right before it. And whoa, we're going to lead him through the hole, just like we did with the other one. Come in through the outside. Now don't tape it yet. Here's the tricky part, is that I'm going to turn it so you can see. What we want to do is we want to get these lined up as close to perfect as we can. So same height, same, see how they're not quite in a row right now? We want them to be in a row with each other and about the same height. And the way that I adjust that is just by pulling this string up and down and then moving where this marble is back and forth. And so I've got this marble here, I've got this marble here, and once I get it kind of where I want it, and I'm gonna say that's pretty good. Then, while I'm holding this, and I'll show you on the overhead camera, while I'm still pinching this so it doesn't move, then I'm going to take my piece of tape and we're going to come around and we're going to tape it again. All right, so these guys are lined up. Everything is taped in place. And we're going to keep doing this. So now I've got two that are basically lined up where I want them. It's a little off, but it should start working. I am going to take this, same exact thing. We're going to come through this side, lead it through the hole that it lines up with on the other side, hold it up. Now I need to make this line up with the other two. How are we doing? Oh, that's pretty close. It's a little off. Let's just see if I can. Probably needs to go down and over just a touch. So once you get it so you're really happy with where it's at, then you just take a piece of tape, and if you're wise, you will do the tape part in advance. If you're unwise, like I just was, you will forget about the tape until you're already hanging it, and then you'll have to improvise. I just had some other tape lying down here, so I just grabbed that, and it worked just fine. All right, so now we have 3. Cool, 3, and they're just about lined up. This one I think was just a little too high, but that's okay. If it's a little too high, you can probably adjust that just a little bit. I'm just going to see what we got here. Okay, yeah, that's working. All right, so see how this one is just a little bit higher? It shouldn't be that high. I'm going to try, and I might mess it up, but I'm going to try to pull this down just a touch to get it lined up with where it should be. Just a little more. And this fine-tuning part, this process of getting everything exactly where it should be, that's the part that takes so much time with setting up a Newton's Cradle build, because the Newton's Cradle is a very particular device. It's got to be very exact, and if it's just a little off, it won't transfer all that energy. And so this is probably the most complex build that we've done so far here on this program, and I know that it's going to be one that challenges a lot of you who are watching, but I'm going to encourage you not to be discouraged. If it is challenging you and you are struggling, that just means you're doing it right. If this was totally easy and you were like, oh, I can do this in my sleep, well, you know, you might not be doing it right. I mean, let's be honest. All right, so now I ran into a small issue with one of my marbles, and it wanted to come off of the string. So I'm adding just a little bit more. The one thing you have to remember with a Newton's cradle is that anything that you add is going to take some of your energy. So some of that energy that you need for the actual cradle itself to work is going to get absorbed by the duct tape, or not duct tape, the gaff tape, the other resources that we use when we build this. And so you just have to kind of be aware that we really, 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 as much as we can, want to minimize any excess spending of resources. If I don't need it on the project, don't use it. All right, so now I've got 4, and they're basically lined up. Here's how this works. I'm going to show you with only 4 so far how your Newton's cradle will work. We're going to take one and hold it back. And I need to hold it back farther than that. My son would be very critical of me right now because that's when I tested this. I did not hold these back very far. But what you'll see is that when it falls, it will get stuck in the tape and then it won't work. When it falls, let's get this. Most of the energy, now some is going to be absorbed because this is not a perfect Newton's cradle, but most of the energy is going to transfer from the first ball in the set all the way through to the last ball. And one more. Let's try this. What I'm running into is I've got my other strings and stuff all in the way, and they're all absorbing some of this energy too. And this one, see what I said about absorbing energy? This little piece of gaff tape right here, it absorbed a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take him out of the equation, and I'm going to show you with these 3, because these 3 don't have the gaff tape in the way, and they don't use as much. And so what you'll see is, and you saw that for a second there, where this one comes up, and it transfers the energy from one end to the other. Now, building a Newton's cradle is really, really tricky, and that's what I've said from the very beginning. But this is a really cool example of transferring energy from one source to another. And honestly, if you got this set up the right way, you can get all 6 of these going, and it will look pretty spectacular. It's really, really fun. Now, for today's program, I actually am going to stop here. I know I've only got 3 done, and you probably will want to continue and finish yours, and I hope you do, and I hope you send pictures of them to me. And if you want to do that, here is my email where you can send those. I want to see them. Again, like I said, even if they don't work out perfectly, in this live build, my Newton's cradle has a little bit of transfer issues. It's not as perfect as the one that I built the day before we did the first episode, and that's fine. You know, it's cool that stuff doesn't work, because let me tell you, when something doesn't work, that teaches you something. Now I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, the first one that I built, it transferred energy a lot better than that. So what's going on with this? And as I looked at it, one of the big things I saw was that my gaff tape was in the way. I learned something. That gaff tape absorbs some energy. So don't be afraid to fail. That is, if there's one lesson that I think everyone should learn in this series, don't be afraid to fail. If you want to do something big and you want to do something right, you got to take chances. And even if you think you know how to do it, and then you do it and you screw up the next time, that's okay. Keep doing it. You've got to keep taking those chances. And you learn something from them if you're willing. Now, if I was going to look at my build here and I was going to say, oh, you know, it didn't work, I quit, I give up, and I don't learn anything from it, that's not cool. But I want to see your builds. I want to see whether they're successes or failures. send them to me. And that's kitbashing@madenewOmaha.com is our email address. I would love to see anything that you build. People are sending me pictures of their builds all the time, and it is just super cool. Again, if you go to our website, madenewOmaha.com/kitbashing, you can actually see all of the previous episodes now. We finally got all of those listed on the website. So on our Kitbashing page, you'll be able to watch all of our previous episodes to see all the different things that we've built. And as time goes on, we're going to add some blog posts where we actually do some like instructables kind of sets to show you how to build things as well. And so there's a lot of fun stuff there. The last thing I would encourage you to do is, if you've got the opportunity, pop over on facebook.com/madenewOmaha. We post a lot of updates there. That's where we send information out on a very, very regular basis. Check out the YouTube channel. If you are watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. John, thanks for coming in. Ashley, thank you for bringing your family in and coming for another exciting episode. I love it when people are here live. I know a lot of our viewers are watching this after the fact, and they'll watch it tonight when everybody's home or whenever, and that's really cool, and I'm glad that you guys join us for that in the evenings. For those of you who are able to make it to us live, thank you so much. It's so fun. Again, as I said before, my name is Jim. I am the host of the show, and next time we're going to build something super awesome, but for now, this is all the time I've got. You have been watching Kitbashing. Have a great rest of your day.